T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice.
Yeah.
Not a game, not a game.
Me. Bam, bam. Me, man.
Not a game.
Slap that like she scored 30.
What are we even talking about, man? We talking about sports here.
Welcome back to the MMA Tap Hour with Ben and Justin. Looks like Ben's frozen here for the moment. It's all good. No, he's moving. He's here. He's just locked in on the Astros and a little upset about that Rizzo home run, but it's all good.
Gave up a home run, man.
It is what it is. Anyway, Ben, you know what? Here we are, UFC 276. It's been some time, but we're finally here. And you know what it is. It's International Fight Week. I just want to give some background on the pay-per-view before we get into the pay-per-view. Right now, the guys in the Wtbs chat have me pretty hyped because of that press conference. So I'm looking forward to getting into this podcast. But here's the background. This event will be held in the UFC's 10th Annual International Fight Week. The 2022 UFC Hall of Fame induction ceremony will also take place during the week. The UFC middleweight championship bout between current champion Israel Adesanya and Jared Cannonier is expected to headline the event. A UFC featherweight championship trilogy bout between current champion Alexander Volkanovski and former champion Max Holloway is expected to take place at this event. The pairing first met at UFC 245, where Volk defeated Holloway via UD unanimous decision to capture the title. Their second meeting took place at UFC 251, with Volkanovski successfully defending the title via split decision. They were originally expected to meet for the third time at UFC 272, but Holloway withdrew due to an aggravated previous injury. We also had a women's flyweight bout between former Strikeforce and UFC women's bantamweight champion Miesha Tate and former Invicta FC bantamweight champion Lauren Murphy was expected to take place at UFC on ESPN 36. However, that bout was moved to this event due to unknown reasons. In return, a week before the event, Murphy pulled out after she tested positive for C19. The bout has then been rescheduled to UFC on ABC, which is Ortega versus Rodriguez. Good to see UFC coming back to ABC. Middleweight bout between Uriah Hall and Andre Muniz is expected to take place at this event. The pairing was originally scheduled to meet at UFC on ESPN, Luque versus Muhammad 2, but Hall withdrew for unknown reasons. Sean Strickland was expected to face former Glory middleweight and light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira in a middleweight bout at UFC 277. However, the promotion decided to move the pairing to this event. And the last thing was a lightweight bout between Bobby Green and Jim Miller was previously booked twice, but was canceled on both occasions, first at UFC 172 in April of 2014 when Green pulled out due to an elbow injury. Green also pulled out the second booking at the UFC 258 in February 2021. Green is just stuck in Miller here, apparently, when he collapsed after weigh-ins and was deemed unfit to compete. They're expected to meet at this event. In turn, Green withdrew again for unknown reasons and was replaced by former UFC lightweight championship Donald Cerrone in a welterweight bout. Miller and Cerrone previously met 8 years prior at UFC Fight Night, Cowboy versus Miller, which Cerrone won by second round.
I'm playing the music on you, Just. I'm playing the music on you.
I have to get my little John Anik on.
We want to talk about some fights, man.
I had to get my little John Anik on. I had to talk about, what the card was. But shout out to the fellas here in the chat already with us. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we got Roland, we got Rick, we got Josh, we got Eddie, we got Jeremy Raw, we got Josh already putting out picks. But let's get into this. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of why we're here, which is UFC 276. Let's talk about the first fight that we want to talk about on the early prelims. This is something you're gonna have to catch on ESPN Plus. Andre Muniz versus Uriah Hall. They'll tell the tape. Muniz, the younger man, 32 years compared to 37. Uriah Hall. Muniz with the better finish rate than Uriah Hall, 87 to 77%. And Uriah Hall coming in with a longer reach. Let's talk the last five for Andre. Say this nickname for me one time. Sergi Pano Muniz.
Sergi Pano.
Well, he's got 5 wins. A win over Eric Anders. You know, Eric Anders, a 50-50 fighter. Breaks Jacare Sosa's arm. He's got some pretty good wins here, Ben. What do you think of these wins?
Yeah, he's got good wins. He's tested. Obviously, he's the first guy to ever submit Jacare. I know that'll be something that we never stop talking about because he broke his arm or his shoulder. He shot blast double on Jacare. He's violence when he's in there. And you got his opponent here on the other hand, Uriah Hall, a guy who was known as nothing but violence coming up through the Ultimate Fighter, in which he lost the season finale to Kevin Gastelum back in the day. But throughout his UFC career, he's been known as that hesitant guy, very gun shy. When he does connect, he does hit pretty hard, but just his lack of activity has lost him a lot of fights, usually by decision. He's never been submitted. Andre Muniz, the Brazilian, obviously submission specialist. The odds are pretty favored towards Muniz here. I mean, we really don't expect much from Uriah Hall, to be honest. I'm all out on him. We look at his last 5, and even then, the Chris Weidman one, he broke Chris Weidman's leg.
Freak accident.
Getting kicked. It's nothing very impressive. Muniz is on the come up. He's been getting guys out of there. So if he is able to submit Uriah Hall, that would be very impressive because, like we said, it'd be the first person to ever do it. He was the first to submit Jacare, so I wouldn't put that out of the possibility. Give me Muniz here. I like Muniz. I don't expect it to see the judges. I do expect him to take Uriah Hall down early. As soon as he gets him down, to submit him as well.
Yeah. The line's heavily favored towards Muniz. You got to expect it's going to be a grappling match in his favor. Not sure Uriah Hall has the tools. We know him to be a kickboxer. So if that hits the ground, the mat, it's over. Game over for Uriah. 37 years of age in that middleweight division is pretty tough. I would say, his better years are behind him at this point.
He just doesn't have the activity to keep Muniz off of him. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's going to be a long night of pressure. Uriah Hall backing up and, having to throw just because his back is against the fence if he's not being taken down. So, if you're a Uriah Hall fan, you might not want to watch this one. There is some out there.
Let's go over to the retirement fight for maybe one, maybe should be 2.
The OG
or for
division.
Sure 1. Donald Cowboy Cerrone, UFC headliner for a lot of his fights, but the time has come and gone on him. And it's scary hours out there for Cerrone. He has a win over Jim Miller, but that was a long time ago. Jim Miller's a much more active fighter, and I would say he's just a little bit better than a 50-50 fighter at this point in his career. Let's get into Donald Cerrone's last 5. I mean, when you're coming up all red, that's not a good sign. I mean, I think at this point they are doing him somewhat of a favor or a disfavor, putting him out there at this point. But they decided, you know what? He's still somewhat of a draw. Let's put him on the pay-per-view. Now, this fight does occur because the fight of Cerrone versus what's his name has gone down twice.
Cerrone
now.
Versus Joe Lozon.
Joe Lozon. That fight is tainted. That fight is snake bitten. It's gone. Stop booking that fight. And that's what they did. They moved on. Look at these last 5, Ben. I mean, Anthony Pettis, you saw the Conor McGregor shoulder TKO. Gaethje put him out pretty bad. I'm surprised Nico Price couldn't get him out. That turned over to an MD or whatever. What are you thinking with Cerrone here?
He's been waiting on this retirement fight. Like you said, it's been booked against Joe Lozon twice.
He needs to stop. Grandma's hard.
He needs to stop. Yeah. And honestly, I just think that the only way for him to stop breaking grandma's heart is just to retire, bro. Obviously, you know, they are giving him that OG retirement fight still. It isn't Joe Lozon. We saw him as a favorite against Joe Lozon. Here in this fight against Jim Miller, I know they're fighting at 170, so Cowboy won't be having to cut weight. He was supposed to be fighting Lozon at 155. But, you know, he beat Jim Miller in the first fight many moons ago with a high kick in the second round, knocked him out. Now you see Jim Miller as a minus, 180, minus 190 favorite, and Jim Miller has been on a little roll. Now it's not, any recognizable names that he's beating. Mm-hmm. Nicolas Mota and Eric Gonzalez. He does have a loss to Vince Pickle there, and even Joe Selecki. So for Jim Miller, he's kind of had a resurgence. He's the one that deals with Lyme's disease, so he goes through a lot to fight. Obviously, it's the only thing that he's ever done because these two are the two guys with the most walks to the octagon for the UFC. So this is a true OG fight. It's a retirement fight for Cerrone, and he's a 2-1 underdog. I do think that Jim Miller's favored for a reason. We've said that Cerrone looks, some may call him a tomato can at this point, but he just looks like a warm body, bro, and he doesn't look like that fighter. He looks very intimidated. He's had 2 fights called off. How much motivation does he really have coming in here on short notice? And then against the guy that he's already beat, how much does that really get him up for the fight? I think Jim Miller's going to get Cerrone out of there, personally.
Yeah, and you called him a warm body. I'm not even sure if the body's that warm still at this point. Pulse. I don't mean to be disrespectful to what Rick has said is your guy, but it is what it is at this point. I find no favor for Cerrone here. Does the thing I question is this a good enough retirement fight the way that we saw against Joe Lozon? We said, hey, this is a quality retirement fight, legend versus legend, OG versus OG. Do you find that in the same sense where Donald Cerrone can right away and say, hey, I fought a good OG in the end, and that's my career?
Yeah, I mean, and it's also a 38-year-old Jim Miller, so it's good matchmaking. It's a good matchup. I do think that if maybe they had a full camp, the line would be a little closer to pick him. I do believe that Cerrone is a little bit more of the underdog because he's coming in on short notice, kind of off the couch, if you will. He's not having to cut weight, so he's been eating what he wants to. He had already said after the second Lozon fight had gotten canceled that he was just going to wait a while and not try and make weight again. So technically not making weight, but not much motivation. I think Jim Miller gets him out of there, but I do feel like it's a proper opponent for Cerrone.
I know this is not a play, but if you had to just guess what round is he getting him out of there? It's a 3-round fight.
I would say first round.
I think Jim Miller can knock him out too.
Left hook.
All right, moving on to Gabe Green versus Ian Gary. Just 2 young bucks of the division who come in on. Ian Gary, they're trying to promote him and give him fights that are favorable matchups. I don't think Gabe Green is the most favorable for him, though. 91% finish rate for Green on this side. Let's look at his last 5. Decent names. Johan Lainez, Philip Rowe, lost to Daniel Rodriguez, Richard Leroy, and Javier Garcia. I mean, other than Johan Lainez, that's the only name you really, really recognize on this list. It is in favor towards Ian Gary. We're going to move over to him. And as you can see, 5 wins. He's 9-0 in his last 5. Going to move over to the odds. -175 for Ian, +150 for Green. Do you feel like they're giving Ian Gary some sort of a guy that he could beat, that has somewhat of a notable name, but is very beatable for him, kind of giving him that O'Malley push, where
I think
it's a good name, but it's someone he's going to win?
He's being brought up the exact same way as O'Malley, I believe. I mean, Gabe Green is a tough dude for sure, but he's a stand-up fighter, and they want Ian Gary standing up. You do see that he is 6'3" against a 5'10" Gabe Green. So he's going to have, the towering range as far as getting his head hit. Now, Ian Gary doesn't move his head very well, to be honest. He gets tagged in his fights. He just has that power in his hands that he's able, to rock guys and then finish them on the ground or just put them out. in this fight, I think that it's a really good test. Like I said, Gabe Green's tough as hell, stand-up dude. He's going to keep going forward. I don't know if Ian Gary gets him out of there, but I do think that Ian Gary gets the win here. I'll side with him. Although minus 175, I do think it's a little steep for what we could say is probably his first test. I won't say big test, but Gabe Green is a tough dude. He's a respectable guy. He's been around. So I think that this is a good fight, a good test.
Roland brings up a pretty good point here. He says he's a Conor protege. They need him to be successful to keep Irish fans interested. I think that's exactly what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to keep that Europe market. We saw the numbers, Paddy Pimblett and Meatball Molly did over there last time in London. So who knows? Maybe one day they're going to sell out the O2. We'll see.
And he does do a pretty good job on the mic himself, Ian Gary. I mean, he's pretty witty. He's pretty slick. He talks his shit. So, yeah, if they give him the right push and if he can, put some guys out, it's going to be the same way that they're bringing up Paddy Pimblett, another guy that you mentioned. He's going to be brought up the O'Malley way as well. They're going to put him against guys that don't necessarily have complete knockout power or are submission specialists. That way they'll have outs in the fight. And that's, O'Malley's just further up the ladder than these guys. He hit the Chito Vera and he gets another test here on this card. So, yeah, he has the same trajectory. I agree with you.
All right, moving over to the lightweight division. Jalen Turner versus Brad Riddell. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong. Jalen Turner is a product of the Dana White Contender Series, right?
Yes.
That's what we see him out of. Lengthy guy. We're talking about a guy who's 6'3" versus a guy who's 5'7". He's going to have about 4-inch reach advantage as well on the night. What are you seeing so far here? You want me to get into the 5 fights for Jalen?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, but just right off the bat, how you mentioned, just a big reach advantage. However, Riddell is a world-class kickboxer. That is where he comes from. So if this fight's going to take place standing up, Riddell's a guy who does really well with distance, coming from that kickboxing background.
Well, I'm looking at Jalen's name. He's got to win over Brock Weaver. He was decent somewhat.
Brock Weaver.
I would say that's probably the name that stands out the most out of these 5 guys, if not for his loss against Matt Frevola, Steamroller Frevola. So
Medic was all right. Medic had a really good debut, but and Turner was an underdog, I believe, in that Uros Medic fight. But that's a decent win. I did think that Medic was legit. Turner made him seem very not legit, though, but I would still say good win. And then you look here at Riddell, and his last loss was against Fiziev.
A contender in the lightweight division now.
Yeah, big-time contender. He's got a fight coming up against Rafael Dos Anjos, the main event, and I believe that he's favored against Rafael Dos Anjos. So, I mean, Fiziev is as legit as they get, and he went toe-to-toe with Fiziev. Other than that, a win against Drew Dober. Drew Dober's as tough as they come. We've seen Carlos Diego, the Valley's own, fought Drew Dober as well.
Yeah.
But Riddell's tough. Riddell has better hands than Jalen Turner, in my opinion. Jalen Turner has turned his career around. Didn't start off too hot coming out of the Contender Series, but he's racked up some wins. But like we looked at his last 5, not very notable opponents. I think that Brad Liddell's going to be able to get inside on him and knock him out, to be honest.
I'm not going to be with you on this. I think Jalen Turner's a little lengthier. It shows on the Vegas odds, too. He is the favorite. I think he's going to be the one that knocks out Riddell. I think Riddell's tends a little bit chested with that Fiziev loss. And I think Jalen Turner's on the come-up for the lightweight division. I think he's going to get the dub here. So we're on opposite ends on this stick. But, hey, a lot of fights. I'm sure we're going to agree with a lot of stuff here coming up. Let's get to the main event, the main event. This is the main card. Here's what you're watching for if you're not watching the prelims. And the opener is Pedro Munoz versus Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, interesting fight, right? Because Pedro Munoz, if you look at his last 5 fights, I know that we're about to get to it, but it's a bunch of losses, but it's to, world-class opponents, top-notch guys that Sean O'Malley hasn't been in there with, the Frankie Edgars, the Jose Aldos, maybe not so much Frankie Edgar now, but even the champ, Aljamain Sterling. And, he lost the decision to him. Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz. These are the guys that Sean O'Malley is, if he beats Munoz, those are the guys he's going to be fighting next. So this is a pretty good test. Munoz is a tough dude. In that Jose Aldo fight, though, I thought he was being real friendly with Aldo. It seemed like he was, fighting against his hero, and he even asked him for like a selfie in the middle of the octagon and shit after losing. It was like not even after losing. I think it was like mid-fight or some shit, bro. It was weird. It was weird. He was like fighting his idol, and in that fight, he wasn't in the fight at all. Then that fight to Dominic Cruz. So really, really good opponents. And now here comes Sean O'Malley, the guy who everybody's beef with O'Malley is that Dana White privilege, that fabricated push where, every move is calculated to where we're going to match him up after the little Chito Vera mishap where, they probably didn't think Chito Vera was as good as he is. And now here he is with a big fight booked against Dominic Cruz. So that's the trajectory that O'Malley was on until he took that little step back, that speed bump. So, I mean, Raul Paiva, Chris Moutinho, Tomas Almeida.
You look at Eddie Wen, not on the roster. Chris Moutinho, not on the roster. Raulian Paiva, another loss this past week. And it's not looking good as far as resume building, really saying, hey, look at the names I've stacked. Look at who they are. The only one that you thought that was okay, Marlon Vera, and that's a loss.
And it's not even a case of like, how in sports we talk about a team's strength of schedule. For example, we tend to do with the Cowboys because of their division. And the thing is, hey, we can only beat who they put in front of us. But O'Malley has had his choice for bigger fights. Yeah. And he hasn't, bitten off that big chunk. He hasn't really tested the waters after that Chito Vera fight. I mean, 3 pretty much warm-up fights after 1 loss, bro. And a loss that you're claiming on you getting hurt. You're going to go and fight 3 guys that aren't even in the UFC. Oh, man, is that real?
Roland, you're going to have to break that news to us because we don't get to see the Facebook photo.
Damn.
But he's talking about a pullout. But anyway, what I wanted to also say about O'Malley was, Ben, does he rub you the wrong way when he says things like, oh, now Chito Vera has earned his rematch against me? When Chito Vera has completely outgrinded him and has a way better resume than he's ever put up.
Yeah, I don't listen to that. I mean, it's the first that I had heard about him saying that, but I mean, I don't think Chito listens to that either. Like I said, like he's fighting Dom. If he wins, he's possibly at a title fight, if not 1 fight away. So you just let O'Malley, talk at this point. If you're Chito, you got through that test. You've and more even after O'Malley. Chito's been racking up really good wins to a point where now he's probably going to go out there and beat the shit out of Dominic Cruz. So I don't think he's got O'Malley in the rearview mirror. O'Malley's got a lot of guys. I say a lot, but he's got several guys to beat before he gets that Chito fight, if you're asking me. But in this one, I do think that Munoz, man, he gets hit a lot. He's gonna stand still a lot. He's just gonna bull rush forward. Might see a little bit of that, basketball, that balling stuff that O'Malley starts doing while doing the crossover while striking. I think that he's gonna show out against Munoz. I'm not sure if he gets him out of there because he's tough, but I do think that it's gonna be like a no doubter. O'Malley showed out on him. Now, we also have seen Munoz with the leg kicks against Garbrandt. He was about 2 or 3 leg kicks away from not being able to walk anymore. Are we talking about this fight and this just not even going to happen, or is this shit going to happen, Justin?
Yeah,
I'm going off, bro.
There's some commenters in here, and they're suggesting it's not happening, that it's a pullout. I'm not 100% sure. Josh, Roland are the ones coming up with it. So if there has been a pullout, we'll have to talk about it later at some other time. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is an O'Malley fight. He's going to win. The question is it happening before 1.5 rounds or after at this point? Because that's what Vegas has it at. I think he gets him out in the second, but I do think he rocks Pedro Munoz.
Yeah, Munoz just rolling. Is this fake news?
Okay, so Roland just wanted to tease us a bit. So let's get into the next one. Bro. Rolling with the ultimate troll. I can appreciate a good troll. I can appreciate that. Next fight of the night. This is a fight that was scheduled to be on the prelims. Robbie Lawler did take some, distaste to that. He didn't like it. He was like, why am I on the prelims? Lauren Murphy, Misha Tate, they get pulled out of this card. Robbie Lawler gets the bump up. We're talking about Brian Barberena versus Robbie Lawler.
Bam, bam.
Bam, bam, Barberena.
1 out. Now,
So,
face Joey Gallo.
pretty even as far as matchup body size goes. 5'11" to 6 foot, 74-inch reach, 72-inch reach. Let's get into the last five for Robbie Lawler. Pretty red. Neil Magny lost. Kobe Covington lost. Ben Askren lost. RDA lost. Got one win against Nick Diaz, who honestly did not look good. We saw what we saw with Nick Diaz. Did not look good at all. But you know what? Robbie Lawler couldn't get him out of there. And so Robbie Lawler didn't look that great either in that fight. I honestly didn't like his showing. Yeah, but it was because the ref stopped it. It wasn't like, oh, he was really hurting him. Man, Nick Diaz wasn't even a 10% of his former self. It was so bad. Let's move over to Bam Bam Barberena. A win over someone else on the card, Matt Brown, Darian Weeks, and Anthony Ivey. Lost to Randy Brown and Jason Witt. A decent win. Let's move over to the odds on the fight. Robbie Lawler minus 120. Brian Bam Bam Barberena plus 100. Ben, how do you see this fight?
Well, I'm saying, what do you think about the odds? It sounds like you don't think Robbie Lawler should be favored.
I don't think Robbie Lawler should be favored. The way that he fought Nick Diaz, he did not look good at all himself. Neither guy looked good in that fight. Brian's coming off some wins. I think Barberena should be the one that's favored. I'm on Brian Bam Bam Barberena for this fight.
So how do you see it playing out for him to win? Do you see?
I see a knockout. I see he finishes Robbie. I think Robbie's on his way out. I think Robbie's past his prime. He's 40 years old now. He's been in some tough fights. The war versus when he won the title against the Canadian, what's his name, where his lip was split open. Rory. I think after that, like he went down a little. That big loss to Woodley took a lot off him. That big knockout. I think we've seen the trend. It's all red for Robbie, except that one win against Nick, and Nick does not look good.
But that red is way more quality of opponents than Bam Bam Barberena.
Agreed.
Bam Bam Barberena is in the UFC because he's tough. He's tough. Yeah. That's why he's stuck around. It's not like he's not great at anything. He's not going to take advantage of. He's not going to take advantage of. I don't think he's going to take advantage of Robbie Lawler. Does he get a couple of takedowns? Possibly, but he's not that type of wrestler that's going to keep Robbie Lawler down, in my opinion. I think that Robbie Lawler is going to hit this guy pretty often. Now, I don't know if he's going to get him out of there because, like I mentioned, he's stuck around in the UFC because he's tough as hell, and he's been in really good fights because he'll meet that guy in the middle and he'll trade. And I think that Robbie Lawler has the power to put him out. So
I think Robbie Lawler 2 years ago, yes, but this Robbie Lawler, he couldn't put out Nick correctly. I mean,
the ref didn't let him, bro.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, if that fight continues, I guess he probably would have finished him at that point.
You know what I mean? It was going.
I was so unimpressed with the last fight that I just cannot be on the kid. That's just what it comes down to.
I feel you. I mean, Robbie Lawler minus 120 against the journeyman Brian Barberena, just like I said, a tough guy. He's like that enforcer. That's what he is. Like, he's on there because he's that enforcer. He's not good at anything at all.
We'll see. I'm still going to stick with my guy. We'll see.
So you think Robbie Lawler is at Donald Cerrone levels of washed?
Yeah, for welter, yeah, for sure. He's at that level.
Wow.
He's above Cerrone. Like, if they were to fight, I would say Lawler be favored, but he's not that much better. The guy's 40 years old, 45 fights. He's done this for so long. That chin is fading. I think it's time. He doesn't have the power he had before. All
right. Well, if he gets a knockout, Justin, hey,
I've been wrong before.
I'm down to bet a shot on this fight right here.
We'll do a shot.
All
right. Here's where we get some fun, Ben. Middleweight division matchup here. This is where it starts to get fun. Alex Pereira versus Sean Strickland. As we know, no subs for Pereira. This is one-way traffic and it's standing up. Don't even try to get to the ground for him. He's standing up. He's a Brazilian. Forget the jiu-jitsu. It's kickboxing. He's got a pretty good finish rate, 80% in the UFC. I think he's 5-1 in MMA, coming over from Glory. And we got Sean Strickland, the boxer, pretty well-rounded as far as fighting goes. I would say a better MMA fighter, more skills that Sean Strickland has. Let's go over the last 5 for Alex Pereira. A win over Bruno Silva and a bunch of other names you probably won't ever recognize. Let's go to Sean Strickland. All green. He's on a roll. Good 2 wins versus Uriah Hall and Jack Hermanson.
How are we calling Uriah Hall a good win? That's not a good win.
At the time, Uriah Hall was still in the green. He was winning at the time. The time of that matchup.
That's not a good win.
Well, I'm just saying, you know the name.
Especially decision, bro. Like, all I see is decision. If you think that he's going to last 15 minutes in there with a kickboxer, I mean, I think that this fight's pretty easy to break down. Do we think that Sean Strickland would try and wrestle, or is he too stupid and is his pride going to get in the way? And is he just going to try and put the pressure on Pereira and get countered and dropped? We've seen him get dropped before.
Yeah.
Now he's on a win streak, but he's been knocked out several times, not just once.
Strickland's a wild card, bro. He's a wild man. He knows what it takes to win. It's wrestling. I don't know if he's crazy. I don't put it past him to keep it standing and try to beat this man standing, which would be a mistake because the last guy I saw Silva fight with Pereira, he took Pereira down, and Pereira struggled for 1 round to get up. He couldn't get up on him. I think it would be a mistake for Strickland this close to a title shot to not wrestle, to not use his full skill set and get this to the ground, get your win, and get up out of there. But this dude is crazy enough to stand.
Yeah, there's also the he's pretty big conspiracy theorist, and I think he's right on the conspiracy of they're trying to push Alex Pereira as fast as they can towards Israel Adesanya to get that rematch in UFC because he has 2 knockouts against Israel Adesanya in kickboxing previously. So Strickland is, of the thinking that they're pushing him. They want Pereira to win, but he's not going to let it happen. And if he beats Pereira and he wrestle fucks him and it's boring, does he get a title shot?
Yeah.
No.
I think so. Who else is there in the middleweight that deserves it at that point?
No.
What? Give me a name that deserves it more.
I need to see the roster in front of me. But if he wins a boring ass wrestling match after talking the way that he is, I see Rexa in the comments said, "Y'all watch the press conference. Strickland wants all the smoke." And yeah, he's a beast behind the mic. But then we get in the octagon and we see decision. If he's going to try and prove a point and stand, especially on a big card like this, with the possible, championship opponent that he'd be fighting as a main event, he's going to go out there, try and prove a point, put the pressure on, and get Pereira out of there. Even though he can't. Give me Pereira here. I think he's going to catch him. I think Sean Strickland's going to look real stupid on Saturday night, bro.
All right,
I do like the trash talk. I do like it.
I love it.
I thought that he really got under Izzy's skin at that press conference from the clips that I saw. But in this fight, I think that he's going to be so stupid that he's actually going to stand up with this guy.
I think that would be a better fight for us to watch as viewers. But I want to give you the middleweight rankings because I really want to stick on. I believe he would get the shot regardless. So let me just give you the rankings. Champion, Adesanya. Number 1, Whitaker. We just saw that fight. It's not going to happen again. Jared Cannonier, number 3. That's happening this weekend. Marvin Vettori. We've seen that pretty recent. He's not going to get another shot at it right away. Sean Strickland's name. After that, Derek Brunson, Paulo Costa, Jack Hermanson, Darren Till, Uriah Hall, Kevin.
He fights Whitaker, and the winner gets a title shot.
So he fights Whitaker again?
If Whitaker beats Strickland?
Maybe. That's not bad. That maybe.
We got some people. We got Roland in the comments saying he's going to get the shot, no doubt. I see what you mean based on that, on the way that.
No, but I also see what you mean with Whitaker. Now that you bring that up, I mean a third match with Whitaker. I'm saying Whitaker won that last match.
And then the thing comes if he wins like shit and he already got under Izzy's skin, Then Izzy says, "Oh, you think you're gonna get a fight with me after winning like that? Go beat Rob. If you beat Rob, you can fight me." Like, come on, bro. We can all see that happening. If he wins a boring fight and Izzy wins his, that's exactly what he's gonna say to try.
I can see that, Ben. Or I can even see them making Whitaker Adesanya again, just like they're making a third fight between Holloway and Volk.
No,
I mean, that second fight was pretty close. Some people think Whitaker won.
Yeah,
so,
but I could see them giving Izzy a little break and having Strickland and Whitaker, figure it out, and then Izzy fighting the, whoever at the beginning of next year.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the first title match of the night. Alexander Volkanovski, 2-0 against Max Holloway. Let's move on to Max's last 5 fights. Pretty good win against Yair Rodriguez by decision. Pretty good name. Got beat up pretty bad for the most part of the fight, too. Dominant performance against Calvin Kattar. I mean, looked like he was just upper echelon of the boxing world. 2 losses by decision to Volk, who I think those fights were pretty razor close. I think those fights, the first fight, I don't think should have turned over, personally. It was too close to give Volk the belt on that. Second was even closer. And a big dub against Frankie Edgar. Moving over to Alexander the Great Volkanovski's last 5. Coming up all green. Just complete domination of the Korean Zombie. Made it look, I mean, the guy made him quit. It was bad. Brian Ortega pushed Volk a little bit. Got a sub attempt. Volk was on the brink of submitting, he even said, but he got out of it. Volk was able to show his full skill set against Ortega. The 2 dubs over Holloway and another dub over one of the greats, Jose Aldo. Ben, how do you see this fight going?
They asked Max Holloway if he watched Volkanovski's last fight, which was a Korean Zombie one. He said his coaches watched it, and they told him he didn't have to watch it, that he wasn't going to learn anything from there. Because I think that Volkanovski didn't see the Korean Zombie as a threat at all. Obviously, we've seen this guy be a decision machine, and he goes out there and treats the Korean Zombie like a punching bag. Has him looking like a zombie to where he gets him out of there. And Volkanovski finishing the fight is crazy. And even finishing the Korean Zombie, a guy who's been, super tough. We have seen Yair Rodriguez finish him with that crazy elbow. But for the most part, very durable, veteran. He can take it. So for Volkanovski to finish him was pretty surprising. I'm not going to lie. Yes, I expected him to outclass him, but win a decision. I just don't know what Max can do different besides have different judges on this Saturday night. A lot of people said that he won the second fight. I tended to agree on the second one. I did think he lost the first fight. It was close. I think we're going to see the exact same fight play out. The over 4.5 rounds is at -270. So they're expecting it to go to decision. If you're wanting to take a play on this, you take either guy and you go to prop and you bet them to win by decision. I know Max Holloway has been talking about finishes, but I don't see anybody getting finished in this fight. A chess match, Volkanovski with the leg kicks. We're going to see him starting to hurt Max, but Max, he ain't no bitch, so he's going to keep going forward. It's wild that we have somebody in the comments booing Max, bro. I don't think that we've ever seen anybody boo Max Holloway. He's a pretty fan favorite. We all win ese vato. Anda transeando in the comments. So, but look, my heart's with Max. I'm going to pick with Max, and I'm going to say there's going to be different judges who are going to see the fight for him. He's the bigger name, and Volkanovski is just boring. He's boring as hell. So I'm going Max Holloway by decision.
All right, Ben. Big time Max Holloway fan over here for me, so I got to go Max Holloway. The best is blessed, but it cannot be by decision. We've already seen that fight go to decision twice, and it has not favored Holloway. The only path to victory for Holloway, which I'm not sure he can achieve, but the only one in my mind is he's got to get the finish here. Cannot let it go to the judges, because if it's razor sharp, and even though he came out on top a little bit, it's getting back to the champion. You got to get the finish if you're Max Holloway. That's got to be your mentality going to this fight. You cannot fight that same fight because it hasn't given you the award twice now. So if you're not fighting for the finish, what are you doing here? I personally think, though, Max is somewhat halfway out, man. He's gaming. He's not sparring anymore. He's doing different things for his training. He's a family man now. He's got a wife. He's got little blessed. I just think he's not as in it as he was when he was younger. Granted, he's only 30, but Max has been at this since he's like 17, 18. It's been a career for him already. I just think he's halfway out. I don't see him winning, but I would absolutely want him to get the championship back. I don't see Holloway going to 155 if that's the situation. We already saw him against, the likes of a Dustin Poirier. I don't think he belongs at 155. He's going to need some time to get up there. While Volk, I think Volk is he's small, but he's big enough to rattle some cages at 155 a little bit, and he has the skill set to get decisions over there.
I disagree that he's halfway out. I think if he was a champion, he'd be in our faces a lot more, and we wouldn't be saying that he's halfway out. He's just not the champion, so he doesn't have all those media priorities like champs usually do, and he's not being shoved in our face. I don't think that he doesn't want it. I think that it's a case of that.
I just feel like what I've seen following his career, it doesn't seem like he's that hungry guy as like he used to be. Like the last fight that he pulled out that gave the opportunity for the Korean Zombie to fight Volkanovski, I don't think the old Max pulls out of a fight like that. You saw him concussed on TV, ready to fight Khabib.
Well, yeah, but if it's your
it's a different Max now.
Yeah, no, Justin, but this is literally your fight. This is the third one.
This is your last one.
Well, that's why you pull out if you're hurt. You go into this one 100%. You don't go in there with any bullshit, because if you lose this one, that belt, you ain't seen it until this guy loses it or is out. And that's going to be past his time. So I disagree. Hey, you're coming. Ron's talking about you're accepting the truth, but this ain't no truth that you're talking about, because I think that you got Max wrong. I think he's going to win Saturday.
Well, I hope I got him wrong, because I love Max Holloway. So that's one of my guys.
It doesn't sound like it.
It's just I've seen it against him twice. So I think that's the game plan. You got to knock him out. And it seems the way that he's talking about this is not going to decision. It seems like that's his plan, to get him out of there somehow. I don't know what he's done, if he's, going to up his jiu-jitsu or what, to try to get Volk out, because Volk is durable. It's going to take a lot to get him out of there.
Yeah, and to go with the no sparring thing, I mean, I think after they saw him, who was he fighting that he sounded all weird? Was it the Khabib one where he sounded all crazy, that Bisping noticed it in one of his interviews?
It was Khabib where he's concussed?
Yeah, I think that, he does get hit a lot when he fights. He takes them pretty well. Aside from that Poirier fight, he usually takes it pretty well, but he does get hit enough when he fights. I don't think he needs to be sparring and getting hit more either. Like you said, he's been doing this a long time. And if it's not Volkanovski, he's beating everybody. Like, he's still.
I just think with the last fight versus Yair, him not sparring, getting the timing down, it showed in that fight, and that wasn't a good look. I think you have to spar somewhat, regardless, though, to get the timing and reaction and the reflexes down. He looked stiffer. I mean, he didn't look like old Max in that fight.
I think Yair in a stand-up fight is a lot better than we all think. In a straight stand-up fight.
Better stand-up guy than Volk. I mean, he has more tools.
I think he's better than Cater standing up also. Like, I think Yair is a tough out if you're going to stand up with him, especially for 25 minutes, because they were main eventing.
I think he's about where Cater is.
I'm shooting Max a lot of bail. You better not do me wrong, boy.
Yes, sir. All right. Main event time. While we're all paying the big bucks to watch it, if you're paying the big bucks.
Shit.
Adesanya, Jared Cannonier. Let's move over to Cannonier's last five. Win over Derek Brunson, who was on his way up to good wrestler. Win over Kelvin Gastelum. Lost to Robert Whittaker at, I believe, Fight Island. Now, I'm not sure if this was for the belt or a number one contender fight at the time, but he lost to Whittaker.
Yeah,
a win over Jack Hermanson and a win over Anderson Silva by TKO. What do you think about these names? It seems like the upper echelon of the division as far as names go.
Yeah,
Robert Whittaker's there, Brunson.
Yeah, he's in the top five, and I mean, he's going to be fighting nothing but the top guys until he that round robin plays itself out. But you see that loss to Robert Whittaker, and we've seen what Adesanya's been able to do in there with Robert Whittaker. Adesanya gets hit less than Robert Whittaker does normally in fights. I think that Cannonier's very slow. I think he's got that knockout power For sure, he has that. He has very strong kicks as well. But the range and the speed is going to be like on a different level. I kind of have like a Adesanya versus Costa minus all the trash talk and beef. I feel like that's the way it's going to play out. I think Izzy's just going to be able to get him out of there.
I'm with you on that. We've seen Izzy versus big punchers, Costa, Romero, and that's not the problem for Izzy. It's a guy who can keep him down like Jan Blachowicz. It's a guy like Kevin Gastelum, has pretty sharp hands and fast hands. It's guys like Robert Whittaker who are really well-rounded and technical in their striking. A big puncher like Cannonier, he hasn't shown any problems in the past for Izzy. I don't see this being any different. And as you can see, Vegas doesn't. Minus 450 Izzy.
Yeah, like you see the odds. I mean, shit. We're saying what we all pay for, but shit, what I think we're going to be paying for is a highlight reel knockout for Adesanya. And he's a guy who's been going to a lot of decisions, you know, with the exception of that Paulo Costa fight. But the speed advantage is just going to be miles apart. And I think he's going to be able to pepper him and then catch him, you know, with that kick or punch, whatever it may be. But Cannonier, I mean, let's not get it twisted. Like we said, he's got that knockout power. So it does take that one mistake.
He has the one-hitter quitter, as they say.
He's got the one-hitter quitter. Facts. He's got the one-hitter quitter. I just don't see Izzy making that mistake against Cannonier. He does respect him. He does respect him. He's been calling him the dark horse in the division for a while. So it's a guy that, and also another dude who has, you know, like roots. Where's Cannonier from?
I'm not 100% sure, but we've seen him with the Stones. We see what he's about. You know, he's into that like stuff like Izzy's into.
Exactly. So exactly, like Izzy respects him. Usually, you see Izzy talk, you know, down on his opponents. This week, a lot of the talk about his opponent has been, you know, centered towards Wakanda.
He said Wakanda.
A lot of the talk around Adesanya has been centered against Pereira and Sean Strickland. It hasn't even really been about Jared Cannonier. So I don't.
But the good thing about that, Ben, is that talk is not coming from Adesanya. He's very focused on his opponent. He's talking about making it a masterclass, talking about being very dominant in this performance. I don't know if that entails 50-45, what he wants, or he's going to try to knock him out. But none of that noise is coming from Adesanya's mouth. It's a lot of the media, a lot of the UFC train hyping up what's possibly next for Adesanya, not himself. So that's a good look on him. You think he's pretty focused for the most part here.
Yeah, I do see one-way traffic, though, man. Adesanya gets it done. Obviously, that line is a little bit crazy. If you want to take a shot on the under, if you want to parlay it, we got a couple of plays that we're going to get into here.
Yeah. Give me Izzy. I think he gets the finish there. I think it's going to happen in the fourth. I think those leg kicks start eating up at Cannonier. The power leaves at that point. You can't plant to throw the heavy shot. And I think he tries to find a way out, and
eats him up.
Adesanya will give it to him. Let's get to Ben's plays for UFC 276.
Let's go, man. And we went over a lot of fights. Usually we just stick to the main card, but there was a bunch of good prelims on this one. Just good fights all over the board, minus the 2 chick fights. Y'all can start watching an hour late. You know, you don't start the fire. Don't get the TV going until, you know, after the early prelims. Walk the dogs, whatever you got to do. Do what you got to do. But we're going to do a parlay. Like I said, with Adesanya, the line is pretty high. So we're going to parlay him with O'Malley and Muniz. The Muniz fight, I really expect to be like Cruz. I don't expect much resistance from Uriah Hall. Like I said, he rarely throws. And when he does throw, he needs that perfect shot to get the other guy out. I expect Muniz to take him down and take care of him. They are pretty big odds. That's why we put 3 of them together. But we do get plus odds parlaying them. So O'Malley, Adesanya, and Muniz in a parlay, plus 125.
Pretty good. Let's move on to your straights for the night. This is straight up picks.
Yeah, some straight plays. So we got Brad Riddell. I know that you, Justin, you were on Turner. I'm taking the dog money on Riddell. I think that the fight's going to take place standing up. Riddell's got pretty good takedown defense if Turner tries to take him down. I think he gets inside, bro, and he's going to rock him and get him out of there. So give me Riddell and then give me Lawler, minus 120. I think those are really good odds for what is 100% a better fighter than Brian Barberena, the tough guy. Barberena's shot at beating Lawler is taking him down, and hoping that he can keep him down. A boring-ass fight. Like I said, though, he usually tends to stand in the middle and slug it out. Give me Robbie Lawler. Then I'm going to go with Duplessis. Minus 145. He's fighting Brad Tavares. Duplessis is on the come-up. Big knockout power. He's got heavy hands. Brad Tavares is a big point fighter, decision machine. This fight will get a little iffy if it goes to decision because Brad Tavares doesn't lose many decisions. But I expect Duplessis to get him out of there in the first or second round. And then the last straight play is Pereira against Sean Strickland. Again, another knockout I see going on here. Or he could lose a decision because he gets wrestle fucked for 3 rounds. If Sean Strickland, uses that little itty-bitty brain of his, if he uses that little bit of brain that he has, and he wrestles and wins this fight, we'll see how it plays out. But give me Pereira at minus 105. Big striking advantage for Pereira.
All right, there's your matchups for UFC 276, and there's your plays. Ben, what fight are you most excited about this card? Big-time card, a lot of good fights here. Which one's your favorite?
I'm most excited for that Strickland and Pereira because I want to see how it plays out. There's been a lot of talk. Obviously, big implications. If Pereira wins by knockout, there's no doubt that he's fighting Israel Adesanya next. If Sean Strickland, you all say wins, period, he gets the fight. And, like Eddie said, he's under his skin already. So maybe Adesanya says, yeah, you know what? Serve him up to me. Let me shut this dude up. But I think that Strickland's going to, with the crowd, with the, big moment of the fight, I think that he's going to stand in front of Pereira, bro, and he's going to get caught.
Yeah. Let's just play a little into the future here and say that Pereira wins, and we got Pereira Izzy. What do you think the line comes out like on that situation? A guy who has 2 wins over Izzy already, 1 by knockout, 1 by decision, and holds wins against all the guys that Izzy lost to. Dominant wins too. What kind of line do we see from the UFC at that point?
It's super hard, to make up the number. Obviously, Adesanya is going to be the favorite. It's just hard to make up the number because, when Vegas makes the number, they take into account, obviously, MMA fighting, not just kickboxing. But for the most part, Izzy just stands up and kickboxes inside the MMA cage. He doesn't wrestle. He doesn't take guys down much. So I think that it'd be Izzy at about 2-1 or under 2-1. I don't think the odds would favor him that much.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I think it'll be Izzy, obviously, because he's the champion and he has more experience in MMA than Pereira does. Those gloves, 4 ounces compared to the 10, 12 ounces of kickboxing is a lot different. And Pereira does cover under those gloves. He's not going to be able to do that with these MMA gloves. MMA striking is different than kickboxing striking. I would lean Izzy, but not by that much. I think Pereira is actually a pretty good live dog in that situation as well.
Well, what do you think the line is?
I think it'll be 2-1, minus 210, minus 220 for Izzy.
All right.
Champions respect and advantage at that point.
That's something to look out for because if they both win that night of Saturday, that line will be out already. Israel Adesanya against Pereira, that early line, and it'll be interesting to see what number it comes out as.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was good getting together for the MMA Tap Hour. We're reaching about an hour. I want to thank everybody that was in the comments. Roland, Ron, Eddie, the other Eddie Salazar. Shout out for him coming into this podcast. He gave us pretty good comments, and it was good to see Diego in here as well. Josh and Rick, everybody that came through tonight. Just leave comments on here, your predictions. If anybody wants to take a gentleman's bet for a shot, I'll do it. Ben, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, bro. Like Justin said, if anybody wants any gentleman's bets, you heard the picks. If you're on opposite sides, hit us up. We'll make it fun. Ben, what shirt is that? It's a Tommy Bahama shirt, Ron. Thanks for asking. But yeah, guys, thank you for joining us, man. It's the first time we did a Tap Hour live. Cool to have 10, 12 of y'all here chopping it up with us about the fights. Nothing better than, drinking some beers, watching some fights on a Saturday. Really looking forward to this card. I work Saturday. I was supposed to work 10 to 7, switch my shift. I now open at 8:30, paid a little bit of extra money to get that girl to switch with me. I get out at 5:30, so.
You paid her to switch?
Yeah, I paid her. I
Wow.
had to get it done, Pa. I had to get it done. So Yeah, bro. I'll be out after the women's fights, and we'll tune in right on time at 6:00.
All right. And I'm super disappointed in Gene for not coming in the comments like you promised me. But that's a wrap for us. And We Talking About Sports. Thank you all.
Peace.
Peace.